I will call to order the 19th March 2019 Board of Trustees of Batavia Public Library District regular meeting. Will everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additional comment.
No, I don't.
On the roll. Blodgett? Here. Gulata, Deachman?
Here.
Garrett? Here. Enders?
Here.
Kenzie? Smith? Here.
Excellent. Do we have any comments from the audience? None. We will move to approval of the consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the minutes from the regular meeting of the 19th of February, the expenditures for February 2019, and the capital asset study guidelines as prepared by coming out of the Standing Committee on Facilities. Does anybody want to take anything out? Or can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Kate. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Blodgett?
Aye.
Gulata, Deachman?
Aye.
Garrett? Aye. Enders?
Aye.
Kenzie? Smith? Aye.
All right, now I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you,
I'll
Kate.
second.
Thank you, Joanne. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right, board education. You had an email that you sent to us with something that we needed to review online.
Yes, and I've heard back from several members of the board on that, so thank you for that. That's the services provided by the Digital Public Library of America and the Illinois Digital Archives. So
I enjoyed reviewing that.
I'm glad I reviewed it when I didn't have a lot of time because that was a rabbit hole that was winding. There's a lot of information out there.
There is, but
Yeah.
it's like cool information.
Yeah.
So anybody I haven't heard back from after a period of time, I'll follow up and say hey.
Okay.
The other, but the day went, I totally would. I did not set up the projector or anything for tonight. Is that something we could set up and we can come back to?
We can see about setting up the laptops downstairs. See what I can do.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. That shows the kind of thing we're doing around. Anyway, we will have at some point later in the meeting, we'll have a brief excerpt from a relatively interesting, actually a very interesting presentation on organizational management that relates to libraries. So,
Okay.
and the other piece that relates to this is the last section of the trustee facts file. So you have chapters 6 through 14 and the appendices from trustee facts file. And the way we've handled this in previous years is simply I've been making it available for your individual review because, there are 5 chapters at a time or, 4 or 5 chapters at a time is way too much to have an intelligent conversation at a board meeting about. But
Sure.
there's a lot of good information in this. These chapters deal with fundraising and advocacy and public relations and trustees' continuing education. And which I think is worth just one comment, that is, we do budget for continuing education and professional development at the library, and I know all of you are very busy. I think those of you that are retired are as busy or busier than everyone else. But we do have opportunities with the Illinois Library Association, which has a Trustees Day of programs, and American Library Association, and which periodically comes back to Chicago, and even a visit to the exhibits, which I think Joanne did that, did you not?
I did.
Would you care to say anything about that experience?
Well, it was a wonderful experience because you walk up and down the aisles of McClure Place and book publishers are there, with their wares, as well as people like BTC was there, and so you kind of get a feel for just things that are available to libraries. When we were there was a big display from the Library of Congress, and they had the poet laureate there, so we met her. And I got an invitation from the woman there to give me a behind-the-scenes tour if next time I'm in DC. So it was well worth and you come home, sometimes they have like free copies of books. And if something strikes your fancy, you can come home with an armful of books.
Wow.
So probably do it again.
The conference is in Washington, D.C. this summer.
I only went to the exhibits day.
No, I know.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are programs that are designed for trustees and and friends groups and other support groups. So it's there's some interesting opportunities to be had there. So thank you. So I encourage when schedules allow, we do have funding for that. And actually, in Joanne's case, I think we provided a free exhibits pass that we had received from one of our vendors, and it was just the transportation cost.
And my husband went with me,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was a fun afternoon.
Nice, okay.
ILA this fall is in Tinley Park,
Oh, okay.
so it's close by.
And they usually have a trustee track.
They do, like,
for-
yes, and it's, I want to say, it's in October, and it's like if there's 3 days, it's the middle day maybe that is the trustee track.
Okay.
We can provide information on that. So.
Yeah, I left out probably the most important part of that day. John Lewis, the representative, was there with his graphic novels on the march.
Wow.
And he was in the graphic novel section, so it wasn't like really crowded. He was sitting there all by himself. I went up to him and held both of his hands and talked to him. So it was cool. I don't know how I forgot to mention it. It was a highlight.
Nice, all right.
Thank you. So anyway, those chapters are for your individual review.
Okay, thanks. All right, and then we'll do that presentation a little bit
And I
later.
apologize that didn't have that set up.
That's all right.
So is the presentation something we're supposed to do online, at least?
Well, we will have an excerpt from a webinar, actually, called Successful Libraries for Uncertain Times. The full presentation is just about an hour. We're going to show about 9 to 10 minutes of it, one segment of it that to give you a flavor for it. And if you like what you're seeing, the web address is right there, and you're certainly welcome to follow up on it. The one question that I guess I would ask, and we can visit this question at the time later, but we could view it in segments on consecutive meetings as well, and so that you can participate as a group. So there are really two options. You can pursue this, watching the rest of it if you choose on an individual basis, or we could basically break it into, probably, it breaks into 5 segments pretty easily, so we could just do it as a consecutive meeting. So, and in the future, we would be prepared for that if you chose.
The length of each segment is approximately.
Well, we artificially broke it into segments, but there's like 5 main points. So, it's about 10, 15 minutes.
Well, if we need to do other continuing education, then maybe we can use that as the tool to do that. But otherwise, I think we can just watch it on our own.
Okay.
It is nice to have the opportunity to discuss some of the things that we're learning together, which is difficult to do thanks to the open meetings. And we
Yes.
can't do that over email with each other.
That's true.
As we're looking at those things, it might be nice to.
That's why I
At
asked the
least set
length.
aside,
If it's only
yeah.
15 minutes and
Right.
allow 5 or 10 minutes for discussion. it'd be-
Sure. Okay.
Or to do it on our own time, but schedule time to discuss it in a meeting.
Right,
I'm
that's
happy with either.
Mhm.
Well, I think Stacy has a report for it.
Laptop 2, the one we have in the hallway, does not have the kind of connector that connects to the LCD projector. Just checking to see if Kathy knows of some magical cable that can bridge one to the other.
You know what we could do?
She has it in her pocket.
Especially since two trustees are absent tonight, what we could do is just defer this to next month's meeting where perhaps all of you would have an opportunity to.
Sure.
Yeah, with my apologies for,
No, that's all right.
so we'll defer it. Thank you for your looking into this.
Certainly.
Would it be beneficial to like assign homework that we each watch the presentation in preparation for the next meeting and then start the discussion with that beginning excerpt, or?
I guess I defer to the board on that.
Only an hour. 57 minutes.
Yeah, is it, or maybe were you going to show the first section of it?
We were.
Well, maybe we just could try and watch the first section, which you said is 10 minutes-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we just watch that first chapter, so to speak, of it, and go from there. And if we find it useful, we can continue with it. Okay. So we'll send some homework.
It's the first time I get home.
Yeah, other than reading all
Other
this.
than
stuff.
reading all
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
right,
spent
right,
plenty of
right,
10 minutes
right,
going through all this
right.
anyway, so it was a big packet this week. so.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of background information.
Yes.
And,
Well, I'm reading through the educational stuff, so.
the one thing I'd mention about that presentation is that Web Junction, which is free, one does have to log in, or, if you don't have an account, which you probably don't have an account, it's very easy to sign up at the time. And you can search on the site for the title or the person who has given it and find it pretty easily. So, at some point, if you wanted to do that. So for next month, we're going to present the segment we had planned. Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, I think we were,
Or are you going to watch that individually?
we'll watch that individually and we'll go from there.
Okay. So do you want us to show anything next month?
Maybe not, maybe we'll just talk about it next month. And then if we can use those as continuing education. Because we do continuing education as part of our grant process, right?
Right, well, and that was what we were proposing for this year's grant.
Right.
Was this one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the completion of this piece will satisfy that requirement for this year's grant.
Okay. And for next year?
They haven't issued the requirements for next year's grant.
Gotcha. But there'll be some sort of education.
Yeah, the subject matter changes from year to year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll be.
Yeah, last year what was about, we focused on homelessness. Remember, we gave an excerpt from a nice presentation on working with the homeless.
Right.
So-
Okay.
And the year before that, we talked about active shooting events and things like that. So each year they focus on different aspects of.
Okay.
And what the state library will, they issue 3 years at a time, and this year is the third set of requirements, and they have not issued the next 3 years sets of requirements yet. So I'm completely in the dark as to what they plan to do.
Okay.
As I'm sure they are as well.
Okay.
So I will notify the other two trustees, and I can send out this link in an email as well, so that everyone can just click on it.
Okay. Perfect.
This will open up this page, but you'll still have to sign up.
Register. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The management team is going to watch the whole thing at some point in the near future. So.
All right. Very good. Item 8, financial reports.
Joe is out of town. He'll be back later this week. His report was in the packet. He did not leave me any particular notes of anything special to call out, so which typically means that everything is going well. We We're spending money at the usual rate. We're just starting to get information from the county on the next, on the levy calculations. We've received the EAV reports from the county, which we had to review and acknowledge. And really, probably anytime in the next week or two, we should be starting to see the preliminary calculations for the taxes that will be paid later this year. So we have not received that yet.
I just had one question, and I don't know with Joe not here, I don't know if anyone, on the cash and investments report, the
Mhm.
green sheet, under the BMO Harris checking account, I just saw, it looked like a transfer to the special reserve fund of $21,837.17. And it's just, it's like the second to the last.
Oh, we've been paying some money out for some of the projects that were approved, and that is showing no money has been transferred per se, but on the books it's showing that we have spent some money that's being in the accounting system being assigned to the special reserve fund, and that's we've had some expenses for the servers. And we had a first payment on the tagging project for RFIDs, so I'm sure that that's what that amount reflects. In terms of how the money moves around, I'd actually have to ask Joe that question.
That's what
But I'm sure that's what the dollar amount
Yeah.
reflects.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. President's report. I don't have much to report other than remind everybody that the consolidated election is coming up in April, April 2nd, and ask that everybody goes and votes. There's library board, park board, school board, city council, and then Waubonsee Community College is also on there. Does that sound like it?
I didn't look to see if there are any referenda.
There's none for us, for Batavia. I don't know about, I don't think there's anything else. I think it's a pretty straightforward ballot this year, or this election. There's not a lot of other outside things going on, so we just encourage everybody to go out and either early vote or go out on the 2nd and vote. Good news, comments from the board?
Yeah, I don't mean to steal any thunder from Stacy, but Rosemary and I went to the One Book, One Batavia presentation last night, and both agreed that clearly the speaker was the best, in our opinion, that we had ever seen there. There were several people that we looked at as being close seconds or close thirds, but he was just so engaging and very interesting to listen to, very candid, very easy to talk to and to listen to. So compliments, Jennifer. It was great.
Nice. Yeah.
Me too.
Second that?
He was really the most engaging author.
And it was a packed house, wasn't it?
It's over 150, I believe.
Over 140. Yeah.
I'd like to add just kudos to the Adult Services Department on the One Book Batavia presentations that they put together this year. We also attended a talk on Monday on the space race and the Cold War and the race to the moon, and it was a really well done. In addition to that, we went to a new lyceum that was the Hesed House manager, and again, just spectacular. So you, Stacy and Lee both, I think, have done our community a wonderful service. It was really well done.
Thanks, that's good to hear. All right, correspondence and communication, everybody, just some annexation stuff for the city. standard
You
stuff.
probably received something from North Aurora at your home addresses.
Yes, for Loophole Park, getting annexed into North Aurora, so,
Right, in your Red Oak.
yep. It's a nice little park. Directors and librarians reports.
Okay. You have written reports in your packets. The primary highlight, well, there are two things, I guess, that I want to highlight. One is a relatively complete list of Mark Twain events and activities are listed in here to give you the foretaste of what is to come the rest of the year. So we're quite excited about a lot of these. And as you can see, many of these activities and events are collaborative ventures with other local agencies, the Historical Society, Fine Arts Center, which is part of the school district, the Park District, Batavia Main Street. We're just very excited to be our Library Foundation. We're just very excited to have so many different ways to help celebrate and to do it with so many other agencies in town. And the other piece is last month the board approved a set of goals for the library director, and so the first report on those goals is included as an appendix to the director's report. So it has all the competencies and goals, and then elements of action plans and current status as you work through all those. And nicely color-coded.
Thank you.
It'll either make it harder to read or easier to read. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, if there's any questions on any of that, I'd be happy to try to respond.
Anybody have any questions for George? All right.
Hello. I will just highlight a few things in my youth services report for this month. We wound up Winter Library Club at the end of February on the 28th, and we had a slightly higher participation this year, 149 families with over 600 children and adults. So we felt that that was very respectable, and participants had a good time and hopefully found something fun to enjoy. Again, they really tweaked our database counts, because one of the activities we put in our program is to try one. And so we tried to encourage families to do that, at least to just introduce them to some of those, because it's oftentimes we hear, oh, we didn't realize you had those databases, and a lot of them are books, online books that children can be reading, or movies related to books, nonfiction, fiction, language. Little Pim is a language database, so we like to highlight, especially those during our Winter Library Club, and that really does help our stats that month for that. 3 programs that I wanted to highlight this last month. Ben's Bubble Show was kind of the wrap-up to Winter Library Club, and it was brought a capacity plus some crowd to the library. We had so many people that we unfortunately had to close the room at one point because we couldn't fit any more people in because of fire code. But it was a hugely successful program. And one of the great things that Pat is doing is she is really getting the library out there on Facebook. And we are learning how to manage that, because we have a lot of response then to some of these events like that. Dr. Seuss Read Across America was also the beginning of the month, and that was a fun Saturday with activities and some stories and a photo booth for kids to do. And our middle school mystery night was just a week ago on March 8th, and I'll send around some pictures from that evening. We had 35 middle schoolers here and 6 high school students helping us with that event, and that is a very fun event. And I have to say that since then, I have had an adult come to me and say, Do you ever do lock-ins like that for grown-ups at the library after hours? So we'll have to be talking to adult services about that in the future. Next week, we have a full schedule of spring break activities. So for families on BATV who are around during spring breaks, check out what's happening in youth services for next week. Our tournament of books is going on as adults, but we're doing picture books, and children and adults are voting on their favorite illustrations. And I have to say, it's been a little different because everybody wants to read the book, which they're welcome to do that. I think, Kate, you came in and read several of the books. But yesterday we had a school group here, and I kind of gave them the brief book talk and then showed them the pictures. And there were 40 preschoolers here, and they each got to vote on their favorite one, and they were thrilled to be able to vote yesterday. So they thought that was really a lot of fun. I also wanted to mention that this Friday and Saturday, Amanda Vanderwerth, our school liaison and youth services librarian, will be going to the Illinois Youth Services Institute down in Normal, Illinois. And she will not only be attending, but she will also be presenting a program at that conference. She is doing a program on our observation stations and what observations we've developed over the last few years, how we've created them, what kind of tips and tricks people could take back to their home libraries and maybe start a similar program there. So she's been doing a lot of work on her presentation, and so we hope she gets a lot of great feedback. We had a librarian the other day who was asking us about observation stations, and so we said, "Are you going to the Youth Institute?" "Oh, yes, I'll be there." And she said, "Come to my event, and we'll hear all about it." So I think that's a great kudos to that kind of programming that we're doing in youth services, and Amanda is going to present. And as I mentioned in my report, Carol Maddock left us for sunny Florida at the end of February, and Mary Steskel will be coming back on board. Mary was a youth services assistant, kind of took a job as a preschool teacher for a while, and has remained with us as a substitute staff member, and now is being reinstated back as a youth services assistant, and will be joining us again as of April 1st. So we're very excited to have Mary joining us again. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Well, I'll just point out on here that you noticed that the Batavia Rotary Club granted $1,050 for the Born to Read program.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed mentioning that.
That's great they did that. And then the Barnes & Noble Holiday Book Sale, so that's when people buy books at Barnes & Noble and set books aside,
right?
So 19 books are coming here from that.
Right. So in December, Barnes & Noble does that, and people coming up to the checkout can just donate a book for literacy, and then Barnes & Noble shares them with different organizations, and we're Born to Read as part of that sharing. And so we have had some very nice gifts from that, and 19 books was great. And the Rotary Club, yes, we are very happy to receive that gift. They've always been very generous with Born to Read. And Maureen Jackienkowski and I will be going in April to talk to the Rotary about Born to Read.
Excellent.
So,
All right.
very happy to do that. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thanks, Joanne. Hey, Stacy.
Rich and Joanne said some very kind things about One Book from Batavia, and I thank you for being there last night for that event. I would like to acknowledge some of the important people who contribute to that. Lee has put together a wonderful series of programs for us this year. We have 5 more remaining in our One Book series, and we've already had a few. So she's really, she's outdone herself this year, and we've got some wonderful things. If a person goes to onebookonebatavia.org, there's a full listing of the events and free registration. I'd also like to mention Pat Leonard, our promotional services manager, who's really done a great job. There's a huge banner out in the lobby that the author posed by yesterday. He asked me to take a picture of him there, and has really gotten word out in a great way about these events. We filled up the room and had a full house last night, which was wonderful. And also the Friends of the Batavia Public Library for sponsoring this event once again this year. The Friends have been supportive from the very start. This actually grew out of a friend's suggestion, and it's been a program ever since then. So thanks all around. Next, I'd like to mention the Tournament of Books, which is going on as we speak. Near the checkout desk, there is a huge bracket showing the books going head-to-head and the daily winners. People can vote here in the library or on Facebook on weekdays, and that's going to wrap up on March 27th. So it's getting heated right now, this competition. Also like to mention Christine Edison, our teen services librarian, presented with Amy Miller from Batavia High School, the LRC director, at the Kane County Institute Day earlier this month. They did a presentation called Working Together, Public and School Librarians, which I think is a nice way to really highlight some of the collaboration that happens in this fine community. And also, Preservation Week is coming up in April. We're hosting an event shortly after the April board meeting, but I wanted to mention this in case people want to add it to their schedule. Preservation Week is a collaborative effort that the library is part of, along with the Depot Museum, the Batavia Historical Society, the City of Batavia, Batavia Park District, Batavia Main Street Burnham Creative Group, and Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley. It's a big group, a lot of events going on that week. We're hosting an event here that Roseanne, who handles a lot of our genealogy and local history programs, has coordinated on house history, and that's taking place Tuesday, April 23rd, 7 o'clock. Free event, just please register, and that's people can call us to register, can visit us to register, or can go to the library website, and there's registration information there as well. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah?
one is, you received this via email, but for sort of the greater good, the library's Trivia B team finished in second place.
Yes, I saw that. Congratulations.
So we've had a pretty good run the last 3 years with 2 first place and 1 second place finishes, and the team is really excited each year to do this. We're very proud of our finish, and the other big event that happened on this Saturday, of course, was the prom dress giveaway, which you've seen some traffic on. There were 900 dresses to start the day, and some 600 were given away. And Channel 7 ran a news report that afternoon, evening, about, they came out and did some nice film, and I was surprised at how long the actual report was. It was very nice. So
Excellent.
we can send you the link if you'd like to see it. And
Yes. I would like to see
okay,
it.
yeah, I will do that. Or you can go to WLS website and you can find it pretty easily there too. But I'll be happy to send you the link. And to echo what Stacy was saying about promotional services and its manager Pat Leonard, the Facebook post, the main Facebook post for the prom dress, the data we see on the backside showed that there was just shy of an 18,000 person reach on Facebook for that, which we think is probably the all-time record for, I would say, wouldn't you say, Stacey, for a posting? And the number of shares, the number of engagements was a couple thousand, I think. It was rather remarkable. And young women came from far and wide, and on Channel 7 it shows one young woman trying on a dress and sort of doing like a little swirl, and it was very cute. And, so we're very happy to be a collaborative partner with Chip in Batavia and the school district to host and we're not just host, we actually for 8 weeks collected prom dresses. The place was a fairy wonderland of prom dresses, and a lot of happy faces that day. So we're very proud of what we're able to do here.
That's excellent. All right, thank you. All right, committee and official representative reports. Facilities, Joanne?
Well, we met, and there were 2 main topics discussed. One was in the consent agenda, and that was setting the guidelines for how we proceed with the capital asset study. And in your packet, it kind of describes the timeline that we set up, so that every 3 years we'll be revisiting a kind of a brush up on the capital asset study. And then each year, we will be submitting a report to the whole board on the projects that will be taken care of that year. So you can take a look at the timeline if you want. The second is the RFID project, which is on the agenda, so I'll just kind of let that go till then.
Okay. Any questions for Joanne? All right, Services Committee met. We talked a little bit about the goals and the format for what George is presenting to us, and then we also talked about an employee satisfaction survey that George is putting together to pass out to the staff to kind of get some feedback as to employee satisfaction and how things are going here from the staff's point of view and how happy they are to be here. And we talked a little bit about the focus of that and a number of different questions. So we're working through that, and we'll have that, I think, at the next committee meeting. So
presumably the next board meeting. But,
yeah, and then we'll get the results from that and go from there. Batavia Public Library Foundation, Diane.
Okay, well, we talked about some fundraisers, and those are from, it looks like on here, there's,
two of them related to Mark Twain.
yes, and they're set up, right?
They are. We will have, these have not been publicized yet, so this will be new for people watching on BATV, but we've now confirmed that on May 12th, we'll have a what amounts to an Antiques Roadshow style book appraisal program that is tied to support for the Library Foundation. And $5, I think, for the first book and $10 for 3 books to have your old books and manuscripts and such appraised by a qualified rare book dealer and appraiser. So that should be interesting. That'll be a couple hours long in the Founders Room. And then on September 26th, we'll have Mark Twain in person and a nice presentation there. And the Batavia Historical Society has committed to hosting a reception in conjunction with that. So it'll probably be that's being presented collaboratively by the Foundation and the Historical Society, and in support of the Foundation and the Batavia Depot Museum expansion project. And so the reception, I think, will be tied to a special ticket price, for people that want to have a cocktail with Mark Twain. So,
Excellent. Okay.
so that was it.
Okay. Anything else for the Library Foundation?
I don't think so. Was there?
Oh, just business as usual.
Yeah. But that was the biggie.
Yeah.
Friends of the Batavia Public Library, next meeting is Thursday. Anything?
Previous meeting, they always meet the week after
We do, yeah.
So I report on the previous meeting. Pretty much business as usual. The only thing to report was several of the board members have volunteered to help with beta testing the new website. And so they'll be providing input to Pat and Hans as to ease of use and that kind of thing. So a week ago Saturday, they had a book sale, and as usual, they brought in over $1,000, this time $1,070. So.
Very nice. Okay. Excellent. Any questions for Joanne? All right. BATV, Rich?
We had a meeting, and generally a number of things associated with the end of the basketball season, the beginning of baseball, and talking about football next year. Probably the most important thing to share is that there is under review by the FCC a movement to change the way that fees are associated with, or may not be collected by local entities. And I would encourage everyone, as I have done already, to go to the BATV website, read a little bit about it, and if you're interested, you'll have the ability to then be able to email individual letters to members of Congress and give them your thoughts on it. So, I believe it's batv.com as opposed to .org, but take a look at it, see what you think.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I know that the PATV is funded by franchise fees, right?
Absolutely.
And so those are, that's
it's a very big concern, not only here locally, but throughout the country. And they have a link to a site actually out in Colorado, which they go into. One of the newspapers talks about it and how important it is in some of the areas there. For us, obviously, it's not as much of a news issue as it might be in some smaller communities, but at the same time, we have, it's a very important source of, three different things that are associated with the legislation, potential legislation, or FCC ruling is characterized by the letters PEG, public, education, and government. And so BATV is a source, alternate source of educational information as well as coverage of all of the local governments. So
Definitely.
check it out, please.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any questions for Rich? All right, item 13, the RFID Phase 2. We have a memo here from the Standing Committee on Facilities for the next step. Joanne, you want to do this, or George?
George, you want to introduce it?
Sure. Well, we're getting knee-deep in Phase 1, which is the tagging part of this project. And so this is, Phase 2 relates to the equipment necessary to check books out and in and manage our security for our collection. So it includes the self-check machines and new security gates and workstations, pads they call them, for the staff to use to check things out and in. So the financial piece in the attachment, which is a proposal, there is an updated financial page, the next to the last page of that packet, that gives the numbers and the individual items for this solution. And there's a piece that is proposed that the committee reviewed and acted on, and then there were several questions that caused the committee to recommend moving forward on a contingency basis, pending several questions that have been responded to in the report and on the financial page. And I'll defer to Joanne on how she wants to address those questions.
If you look at that last page of the piece from Biblioteca, you'll see that the first section, under proposed solution, that was the portion of this project that the facilities committee agreed to go forward with. None of this should be a surprise to anyone. This has been discussed, at length. The one thing that was added was an additional workstation. So that was the only thing that was added. So the Facilities Committee did approve that. The second section, the optional solutions, the two items there, one is called the contactless payment unit, and the coin and bill payment integrated unit. Had not previously been discussed in the committee. There was no pricing information available, and there were just a lot of questions surrounding those two. So we did decide to bring this forward to the board, contingent on getting some information. We did get the pricing information, Other questions we asked were, since these are optional kind of modular additions to the solution that we had agreed to, we wanted to know pricing information, if it were installed, factory installed versus added on at a later date. We wanted to know if there were other libraries that were using these units and what their reaction was to them. Kind of asking the question, what problem do these 2 units solve? You know, one, the contactless payment, I don't know if you're familiar with that, it's kind of a term for like Apple Pay. And I mean, it's just like, is there a need for that in the library? And again, I don't want to lead the discussion. I kind of want to get some board opinion on this, but I guess maybe just to start things off on that particular unit, I am a big believer in technology. I want to make sure that our library is relevant with regard to technology, but I don't want to see us chasing technology. And I'm not sure that that is a proven technology. I'm not sure that there is patron demand for that technology. So, I mean, those are some of the questions that I had introduced. The coin and bill unit, which is the second one, it's kind of like, you know, the Coke machine where you put your dollar in and get your candy bar or Coke or whatever, and it'll give you change. The proposed item here is one of these that would be attached to the kiosk up here on this floor. And that would be, you know, in the self-checkout station. If a patron wanted to pay a fine, they could do it right there. There were 2 pieces of input that we had asked for from other libraries that were using these add-on units. One was Bloomingdale and the other was Oak Park. Bloomingdale seems to be using theirs. They had some trouble with the coin and bill unit, getting it to work properly, so they had to kind of work through some issues with that, but they are using it and evidently successfully. Oak Park has both of them and has chosen to disconnect them because they're not very happy with them. I shouldn't say that. I don't know what the reason is that they disconnected them. But my issue there was 2 data points, Bloomingdale and Oak Park. And again, I don't want to be coloring the discussion, so I'll kind of leave it at that.
Is it the same price to add these later?
It's a little bit more expensive to add it later.
How many transactions do we have a day, a week, a month for fees and fines? Do you know?
I don't know the number of transactions off the top of my head, but Stephanie did pull some data on the forms of payment that we received.
Okay.
And at the checkout desk, nearly 43% of the receipts are credit card, originated with credit cards. And just over 25% are cash, and just nearly 19% are by check.
Okay.
To give you
And our fines, because with automatic renewal, our fines are down considerably. Remember what fees and fines?
14,000.
In the past, it's been 45, I think it was.
It was as high as that, I think, yeah.
A couple, 3 years ago when we were still doing fees. So,
Yeah, we swapped the revenue for the greater service. And that was,
right, we decided we're not in the business of collecting money from our patrons, so if we can avoid, right. Yeah, I don't have trouble with the technology. I have it on my phone, I don't use it.
That was the question I wanted to ask the other trustees, if you are using contactless payment.
No.
I've never,
I have it on my phone.
anytime I have my phone, I have my credit card, so I feel more comfortable doing that, and so.
My husband uses it, but, I mean, I think it's a growing trend, but I don't know how. I don't know that the trend is going to grow fast enough to keep up with the technology. I have a feeling we'll replace the technology before it becomes universal, if that makes sense. Just based on the way that we've been replacing other kinds of technology around here.
Right. What's the lifetime of this equipment, do you remember? Is this a 10-year system? Is this a?
Well, we're replacing a system we've had for about 10 years.
Okay. Okay.
I can't guarantee this is a 10-year system, but
No.
I'd say we're looking at, longer term.
Sure. Hopefully it's quite a while, but right.
Yeah.
It's not like the.
This is current
Nothing's
current
moving.
technology. Certainly, they're continuing to, improve software and such.
And it's not like there's a lot of moving parts that can fail.
But in fact, even the
No, but there is software related with it. And
Sure.
so,
Yeah.
there'll be bugs to be worked out.
Oh,
even the DVD unlocker is right now we've got essentially a mechanical system that you probably all use it. It sucks the DVD into the slot and pushes it back out. The new one, you basically hold the DVD into a depression and the DVD is not sucked into the slot. It's actually just unlocked on the outside.
Fewer moving parts maybe?
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Okay.
But that's not part of this.
But yes, we would be getting new DVD unlockers.
Right, but I mean, that's not what we're talking about here.
No, the solutions that Joanna's talking about are under optional.
Right.
Is 2 additional forms of payment, and are they, is it worth the investment, for that level of service? And there was an interest on Joanne's part, my part, to just, have more discussion on that. And I think what you said, Kate, is very interesting. It's, I know many people that have it, like Andrew does, on their phone, on their smartwatch. I can't say that I know anybody that's actively using it now, but that doesn't mean they won't,
Well, I think until we have an app to have your library card on your phone, it probably, I mean, if you have your card with you, you probably also have your wallet or your keys or some other form of payment.
Right.
I mean, that'd be great. I'd love to have an app with my card.
There you go.
All I need is my phone in my life. It'd be awesome. But-
You can scan your card into, there's One Key, I think is the name of it, on iPhones. Is it on Android yet?
There's something similar for Android.
So part of that is scanning your phone on the scanners and it being able to read that. And that was a problem in the past, was being able to, the scanners reading your phone in the screen and the interferences there.
The screen protectors, there's different things that it causes. The technology is getting better.
But I think you can do that. So there's at least one that'll do it on the iPhones that's called Key, and then there might be one on the Android now. I haven't looked lately.
Board education.
Is there one?
This is great.
Stephanie can
We
answer.
just have a correction.
Yeah?
Oh, okay,
Well, I think maybe talk about the library card first, and then we can come back.
okay, so as far as, I'll come up this way, as far as the library cards, the Circulation Advisory Board for SWAN is actually discussing that tomorrow, so we'll see what they discuss on the agenda. But there are a couple different options for downloading apps for using your phone to scan your library barcode. And then we're also looking into the option of having a library app that will do that as well.
Okay.
All right.
Another one of my keychains gets pretty done here.
I know. We just want to make a correction too. The credit card payments are actually 56%.
Okay.
because we have to include what's done online as well as what's done on the desk. So, and the credit cards are part of what we're getting with the new self-checks. That is built into the first set of numbers. It's not an option.
The swipe and chip.
Right, we're getting that automatically, so they will have a way to pay their fines. The majority of people are paying their fines with credit cards now. It's just, do we want the other two options in addition?
Okay, so the base unit has a credit card swipe on.
Yes, and it will be upstairs and downstairs.
Okay, the add-on is to do the contactless and/or cash.
Right, and that's what's shown on your chart, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Will there be a cash option for people? Could they still come to the desk and pay with cash? It's just that this would be self-service.
Correct.
Okay.
And they can pay with the credit card at the desk, which is
Right.
what 42% of the money is now. There is an online payment, but they are done either in-house or, is the online what happens at the desk, or are we separating that out?
Separating that out. So online accounts for 13.25% of fines that are paid, and then at the desk, credit cards is 42.76, so it's roughly 56%.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't even know we could go online and pay our fees, so that's nice to know.
But I think it is important to distinguish that in-house, it is like almost 43%.
Sure.
The online, people are paying from home or wherever they're paying from, so.
Okay.
Which is why I think Stephanie broke them out separately.
Okay.
I think as long as we have an option for people to pay with other methods, I mean, this is nice. If it works well, it sounds like it doesn't always necessarily work for other people who are applying this technology. It's
Hard to say that. I don't think we have enough data to say
Okay.
that.
Are we talking contactless or cash at this point?
I'm talking both.
Okay.
Well, the self-pay, the self-check payment optionals,
Right.
the contactless and the coin bill.
We only have the 2 data points to really
Sure.
be judging.
Right, and one likes it,
And one doesn't,
use
so
it.
what do I know?
I don't think, I think it's $13,000 we don't need to spend, in my opinion.
See, I would agree with that. It
Well, I
just
think,
seems-
well, the question is,
Is it worth $13,000?
no, I think it's worth looking at them individually.
Okay.
I think because contactless is one issue and cash is another issue.
Well,
I think that's fair to look at them separately.
For sure.
Yeah, because the contactless is the one that, in our environment, is truly not well tested.
Yeah.
It's less expensive per unit, and it wouldn't require somebody to deal with a coin machine. And that's going to require daily or frequent maintenance if you have
Right.
to.
Load it and unload it.
Right, yeah.
Another option that what I was thinking of is that the library will be adapting to a new system, the new checkout system. That will require a lot of getting used to, a lot of dealing with issues, just the main system. And then to add on additional modules kind of exacerbate that situation. Both of them can be added on later. Biblioteca, from what George told me, is willing to hold the price for 6 months, the price that we would pay. There is an issue with installation afterwards for the coin and bill unit. Is that right, George? That they would have to it would require some downtime once it was installed to remove the front panel.
Probably only a day, but it's, yeah.
But that's an issue. And some people feel factory installed is maybe more reliable, but I don't know if that's, I have no data to back up that statement.
Bloomingdale is doing something that's interesting, which may or may not enter into the situation, which we're not doing, but it's an interesting option to discuss at some point, and that is that they are using their coin and bill payment option, and they may be using it on their photocopiers too, because we actually collect plenty of change and things through our photocopiers. They are able to add cash value to their library cards. They're tying it to barcodes using the same gateway comprised technologies. And so some people, I guess, in their situation are adding cash value to the library card and then using the library card to pay fines. Or they're using, in their case, I think they've got it set up so they can use the library card to operate their photocopiers. That new photocopiers probably is our next project, after the dust from RFID settles. So there's some interesting technologies that are available to us as we look at other ways to enhance. And I'm not recommending any of this now, but I just thought it was fascinating that the library has taken that kind of a step. So.
Well, eventually, we're going to be pretty much a cashless society, and I don't know, like, when that is going to come about, but I was hearing something about that on public radio the other day.
That's why the chart on page 4 is so interesting, I think, in the report, because it's some recent data from a year ago on share of instrument payment usage. I was sort of blown away by some of the numbers. The cash and the debit card numbers, I think,
That surprised me.
were surprising to me.
The debit percentages were higher than the credit card percentage.
Yeah, and the mobile in 2017 and 2016, the mobile, which I presume is Apple Pay and things like that, is like such a tiny little line on there. So it's they don't even give it a percentage, but. So they're showing, the data is showing that like in this study, conducted by the Federal Reserve, that as you can see, use of cash is declining, 1 or 2% a year over the last few years. Ironically, the use of debit card has gone down a few percentage points, but is holding steady. I think the growth area probably is going to be in mobile over the next decade, whatever that turns out to be.
It'd be interesting to know if that's things like Venmo and Cash App and Facebook Pay, because there's a lot of digital payment options that don't require
more and more.
kiosks.
I think it's an unproven technology. I mean, it's not unproven technology, it works, but it hasn't settled itself out into, what's going to be the form of cashless payment.
Does the staff have recommendations on this? or advice you'd like to offer?
We've talked about it a lot internally.
We've talked about it a lot. We've given, George has some numbers that Stephanie ran, talking about what the return on investment is, how long it would take us to pay off some of the options if we chose them. And they were quite a lengthy amount of time.
Based off of a 10%, say we were to get 10% of our fines and fees at the current rate that we're receiving them through these payment options, it would take longer than a 5-year term for both coin and bill and for contactless payment for 2 units at least. It would take longer than 5 years to even out at 10%. So.
And in fairness, that's both the cost of the annual maintenance as well as the purchase price.
Correct.
So purchase price is different. But,
so based on that information, I would, at this point, most likely recommend not moving forward with coin and bill or contactless payment.
We're in agreement.
Is
For what
it-
it's worth.
Is it much of a hassle then for the checkout staff to collect fines and things? I mean, is it not really?
oh, we're doing it now.
Right. I mean, is it an inconvenience? In my mind, is there value if if you spend $13,000 to free up the staff from the time it takes them to do that, does that free them up time to do other things, or does that make the line shorter for everybody else, or is there not really, if you were to completely do away with the staff having to deal with money and everything was done through the kiosk, would that be better?
I don't think that will happen.
But I don't think you
No,
could either,
because
so.
you still have like the books that you buy.
Well, no, even with the credit
From the
card,
friends,
even
yeah.
even with the credit card units that are part of the proposed solution, I predict there's going to be a curve to get any kind of significant use out of that, because libraries that are using this equipment are still seeing people checking out the self-check and then turning and going over to the desk and paying. So I think as people get used to it, I think you'll see more and more use of it. But I'd say the first 6 months, it won't be as big a use as like, a year from now or 2 years from now. So.
Well, I was going to say there is merit in the value of adding these options if it is providing a higher level of customer service to the patrons. But I think part of making that decision would be taking into account what percentage of the population is benefiting from it.
10%? Less than that.
Yeah, that's-
I would ask,
that's a good
what
point.
problem
Yeah.
would purchasing these 2 units solve? Purchasing the RFID system solved the problem,
Sure.
and that makes sense to go forward with that. So purchasing these, or take them piece one at a time if you choose, but is there a problem that they would solve?
Well, and right now, you can't pay any fine at the self-check. So it's not like they're losing a service. They're going to gain one with the credit card payment, which the majority of people use to pay their fines anyway. So, I don't know.
I feel like there are other tools that would help you more for $13,000.
Yeah, so one of the things that going back 2 years was one of the goals was to add a payment option. That was actually always one of the core goals. When we added the DVD unlocker, our use of the self-checks grew to like 30% or more, which was at least double what it was before that. And the theory has always been that by having some form of payment, and we do have credit cards built in, that will, as people get accustomed to that, that will add that. From my perspective, I like the idea of offering options for removing those barriers. And for me, contactless is like the least likely because of all the data shows that while it's growing slowly, it's not really a major source of revenue now. And I'm more inclined, if it was my recommendation, or at least the way I'm leaning, I don't know if it was a recommendation, is to not do the contactless, but seriously look at the coin and bill payment, and for really 3 reasons. And one is, again, removing a barrier. Second is that there's a value, I think, in having it factory installed as opposed to installed in the field in 6 months or a year if we decide we won't do that. And the third is the current numbers, 25% of our revenue is coming in cash, and 30% of the users making payments at different places are using cash. So that's not a huge number, but it's indicative that, especially given the demographics in our community, that tie into the demographics on this Federal Reserve report, I think there may be some value to that. And I sort of like having the option open if we want to explore other ways of letting people use the photocopiers and in the future add cash value to their library cards and things like that.
Which they could do with their credit card too, presumably.
I don't know. Yes, but I'm not sure how that works with the cash and with the coin and bill payment thing. Literally, I think what Bloomingdale is doing is people are putting in cash in the machine and it's recording it tied to their library card. So on the comprised technologies equipment, they're using that. Would we adopt something like that in the next 2 years? I'm not in a place to predict that. But those are my 3 reasons for at least seriously looking at it. Otherwise, I think all the discussion is pertinent to where society is right now.
So what do we need to do to move forward? We need to decide whether or not we want to include any of the optional items, and then...
And then have a motion for the whole shooting.
Okay. I guess what are the thoughts on the additional payment? I guess I'm leaning more towards not including any of those, and that's not a problem that needs solving right now. I think it's a good way to think of that.
One other thing that I didn't bring up earlier, and that is that money that it wouldn't be spent on the additions could be then put toward phase 3 of the RFID plan, which we don't have a cost for yet. We know what's, in the capital asset study, but it would give us maybe a little cushion on that. The other thing, though, to keep in mind is that the purchase of the whole thing would be within the constructs of what's in the capital asset plan, so we wouldn't be overspending. It's just, do we want to spend $13,000?
Right, or
on these
7 or 5 or
Right.
13, right? Rich, any thoughts?
No, I'm tending to agree to postpone.
Okay.
Postpone.
Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah, I can go either way.
Okay. All right, so then I guess what I'm hearing is that I would like to hear a motion to accept the proposal from Biblioteca without the optional solution items.
I so move.
Thank you, Diane.
That's the 63.
The 63,689.
689.
Plus, we'll have the support and maintenance.
Right, and one thing we didn't talk about is the figure in red, the 7,600,
Yeah.
385. That is the cost of the library for maintenance on our existing system, the one we have now.
Oh.
So our maintenance actually will be less.
Oh, nice, okay.
Mhm.
Will the new security system work with the old?
No.
So we have to get both
I
of them?
don't, we did not get hybrid gates, did we?
No, we're getting new gates and new self-checks.
We're not getting, the new gates do not work with the magnetic at all, right? That's what I thought, yeah.
But we won't, all of our collection will have the new tags on it, so we don't
Correct.
need the old gates anymore.
Right, and that's part of the phase 1,
Right.
which may or may not start tagging on Monday.
Okay.
We're not sure yet, but that's the process. The biblioteca will come in,
Okay.
tag the entire collection. And hopefully when that's done, we will have the new equipment for phase 2 and it will all
Okay.
start to.
Okay.
Because the new gates are in this.
And
Right, yeah.
are we going to be able to check out books from other libraries that don't have these, right? The barcodes on
Yes,
this
you
work?
can still scan the
Right.
barcodes.
And we don't need to worry about security for those because we don't have that many items and they're all in a specific location for anybody that comes to pick those up. So it's not like they're out in the...
We don't know whether stuff that comes into us has security or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not out in the general circulation where somebody could just, is likely to, yeah. So-
Yeah, one other item, Andrew, before
Sorry,
we
yeah.
move on, and that's the additional local expenses that I didn't explain, the $3,000 there. That's going to be for electrical and Ethernet
for
to
the new
be
gates.
fished through to the new gate. And that's an estimated cost that is listed there.
And you'll find a local contractor we worked with in the past to
Correct.
get a
We're
cost.
going to have to actually probably drill through the floor and do some channeling in the concrete to be able to, it needs to have electrical and Ethernet. And the electrical is there, but not in the right spot.
Of course.
And in fact, it's not even in the right spot for when the building opened. We actually moved them closer together many years ago, and so that's why they have those little U-joints or whatever, elbow joints on the floor. That's where the electricity is actually coming out. So that'll be moving closer to the door, and there is no Ethernet there at all, so we have to get an Ethernet connection there, which probably will come from below.
Okay.
Which is what we did when we did the stand-up catalog stations. We actually drilled them.
Oh, okay.
from
So
below.
this estimate is based on having done similar work.
Yes, and but I'm not going to swear to how good an estimate it is, but
No,
But
it's
I've had some conversations with several people, and we think it's in the realm of reasonable. And
got the right number of
and
zeros.
the 63,689, there are some footnotes that indicate that that really is not a perfectly clean number at this point. There is some shipping and handling and support and maintenance numbers that need to be clarified. It's mainly shipping and handling at this point, so it was apt to change slightly.
Okay.
The estimated shipping and handling was, they gave us a proposal that included the optional solutions as part of the proposed solution, which I separated out because of the committee's review did not include the optional solutions. And so the shipping is probably close but not accurate. So I don't know how we should phrase that. We're very close, we're just not, that's just not an exact number.
It's like an additional workstation was added, so there will be shipping and handling for that. But, I mean, that's a minimal.
Sure.
Well, and I'm not even sure.
When we make the
yeah.
motion, what is the language that we need in order to cover those unanticipated?
We could do a not to exceed number of some number higher than this.
To exceed
Yeah.
70?
70?
That would certainly cover.
I think it would cover it.
contingencies, yeah.
Good.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve and authorize director sheets to execute a proposal from Biblioteca LLC for the RFID equipment and related peripherals in the amount not to exceed $70,000 as presented without the optional solutions. Thank you, Rich.
A second?
Thank you, Kate. We'll need a voice vote for this.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Roll call.
Right?
Roll call.
I'm sorry, roll call, that's what I meant.
Blanchett?
Aye.
Coletta, Deitchman?
Aye.
Garrett?
Aye.
Enders?
Aye.
Kenzie? Smith? Aye.
Thank you. All right. She knew what I meant.
yeah.
I had my little cheat sheet.
Uh-huh. All right, excellent. So what's the anticipated delivery date for that? Are we 3 months out?
8 to 10 weeks.
8 to 10 weeks, okay.
So exciting.
So
So yes, 3 months.
2 to 3 months from now, we'll have our new system in place. Like, very excited. Okay.
And congratulations to Kara and Stephanie who've waited a long time for this.
Hopefully it's
I've worked very hard to get there.
Yes, they have.
Hopefully it's all about the same time.
cool too.
What?
Self checks are gonna be very cool. You can take a stack of books and put them out there.
Right.
Check them all out at once, no.
Really?
Yeah.
individuals.
Stack 'em
Sounds like a
up.
challenge.
There won't be that much room.
And for those ladies who carry a purse, there will be a shelf next to it for you to put your purse.
On both sides.
Are the gates gonna look like the illustrations in the?
Yes.
Clear.
They're so cool.
And no middle part, it'll just be the two on each side.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, even that.
If the alarm goes off, it'll tell which books are not free of the security, so.
That was the question I asked, is the ability for a whole group to walk through the gates. The alarm goes off. Who is it?
Well, you know what book it is, you just don't know who's got it, right? Yeah.
That's what they said. It
Oh, that's
didn't
awesome.
pop up
The
in.
Bodice Ripper Romance.
Not me. Excellent. All right.
It's great.
Future agenda items. George has a list for us here. Again, the consolidated elections on April 2nd coming up. And then our regular meeting is the 16th. Anybody have any questions on that? All right. Next meetings and events. 138th anniversary of the library on the 5th of April. Drop everything and read day on the 12th, and then our meeting on the 16th. I need a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Joanne. All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.